Hello, welcome everybody.
Hi
It's
guys.
great to it's great to see all of you coming in to joining for our first interactive session. I think so. We have Hesh Fernando here, co-founder and CEO of oDoc, who've agreed to come for a lively chat to share his experience. I think he went through a very different angle or a very different wave through the crisis beyond what you and I did as fellow citizens. So I think we'll have quite a few interesting insights coming in from Heshan during this chat. So this is just to let everybody know, we will have a conversation between Heshan and I for the first 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open up the floor for any questions you might have. We've also had a couple of questions submitted to us before this session. We'll also bring that up during our conversation. If you have a question, keep it with you and we'll open the floor for questions soon after, and you can directly ask Hesh your burning most questions on how it was to really ride this wave and to continue to ride it as we speak. So Hesh, thanks again for accepting our invitation and welcome.
My pleasure, Andala. Hi.
So how are you? How have things been? How crazy have things been?
Things have been pretty crazy for us. I think the first 2 weeks after everyone went on lockdown, we probably got more done in those 2 weeks than we did in the 2 months preceding that. And now we've almost come to a new normal, and things are better than it was. So.
Okay, so calmer waters, I suppose. So I know, I mean, for all of us, COVID really came by surprise, right? Nobody saw this coming. Sure, we've always seen movies, listened to talks of this day, really, but nobody really saw it coming in January 2020. But you guys had a platform already that was prepared to help people remotely anyway. But as a founder of such a platform that provided medical and healthcare services, what was your genuine reaction? Was it like a, oh yay, or oh no?
Okay, I'm not going to lie. So it was a bit of a both. I someone sent me a video clip shortly after the pandemic was spreading across the world. It was this video clip of someone in a train station in India, a seller selling selling COVID masks, and he was just shouting COVID, 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 and then collecting the cash. And every time he collected the cash, he was like holding his head and holding the masks and like thanking himself. And I can remember sending this to my co-founders and saying, really hope this is not us right now. So we did think about it for some time, but then came to the conclusion that we were obviously providing a service that was beneficial, and from that point on, we move forward with it.
Okay, so what you're saying is you were ready somewhat because you had the platform active already, but to meet the surge of demand, you collected everything together and.
Yes, so that was more of the oh yes part of it. The oh no part of it was how on earth I'm going to get my mom to basically heed all the advice to stay in, but it's been much better than expected. And I think the other thing was how is our health infrastructure going to cope with this initially, because we didn't know how bad it was going to be and how fast it was going to strike.
Yeah.
And the other thing would be, I read a great analogy the other day on how we are all in the same COVID storm together, but all of us are on different ships. So it's I think important for us to and difficult at the same time to be able to empathize everyone's different situations, but that's also very important at this time.
Exactly. And I think you said it very correctly, Hesh, because each of us wear very different hats, are placed in very different situations and contexts. But all of us are more or less dealing with a very similar pandemic affecting all of us in a very different way. So what were the immediate most consequences you had to deal with in preparing oDoc to really meet with the surge of demand, and in general the crisis?
Initially it was around the team and obviously their safety. So we started working from home a little before the country was put in lockdown. And after that was sorted out, and it was not too difficult because as a startup we are anyway used to working from home. After that was sorted out, it came down to funding. We were very close to closing our next pre-series A round, and luckily or unluckily for us, our two existing investors who were leading the round happened to be corporates who were badly impacted by COVID. So suddenly the question of funding a startup was the last thing on their mind. So we really needed to have a strategy around that because we were running short of runway. Luckily, we were able to raise some angel investment quickly. Obviously not on the best terms, but at this given time, you don't you just want to survive to see the other side of this. So yeah, then it came after we sorted out the funding. It came to managing our working capital. So our primary product was selling B2B subscriptions to companies for their employees, where the employees could do unlimited consultations on oDoc. And suddenly we saw our utilizations rates naturally spike, and obviously we couldn't plan for a epidemic or a pandemic like this to see that high utilization rates. So we needed to manage the cash burn there, as well as we planned for the next couple of months seeing much higher debtor rates than the previous months. So it was seeing how we could control our cash burn, and then obviously doing the small things like renegotiating our office rent, etc. In terms of the system, we looked at our infrastructure and obviously had to move it onto larger servers to be able to cater the increase in demand. And I can remember about 6 months ago, someone from our dev team. So our team is broken down into the devs and the ops guys. The dev team normally takes a big dig at us, saying that we don't sell fast enough and our growth is pretty slow. So someone made the comment that with our current growth, our infrastructure can last us for about 2 years, and and obviously last month it was really put to the test. Apart from that, we had to onboard doctors very quickly. One thing that was great was that the Ministry of Health and the ICTA helped us with setting up a national telemedicine service. And it was great to see how efficient they were in doing that. And the final piece would be getting the call center together. Suddenly we were handling a much larger volume in terms of inbound calls. And it didn't help also with one TV channel putting a call to action for people to call our hotline instead of downloading our app. And for about 2 days, everyone in the company was just answering calls until we managed to hire more call center agents. And we were lucky. The startup community helped us with that as well. There were a couple of startups one who was in the travel sector, where the call center team basically didn't have many incoming calls. So they seconded some of those call center operators to us. And we also now managed to get a more robust call center infrastructure. And finally, the big one was changing strategy. Suddenly, you're working on this 3 to 6 month strategy, and then you need to change to a 1 to 2 week strategy. So that's basically were the immediate consequences of COVID for us.
So I think that's a very interesting point you made. I think the whole story of this 4 weeks, how you really navigated into very different phases and fuddling through the problems that you faced each week is very interesting. But I'd like to pick on one point. You spoke about working with different teams in the startup community. So basically going into a very different form of collaboration, right? That you wouldn't have looked at in sharing resources in terms of call center, people from the travel sector helping you out. How did that come to be? Are they your personal affiliated friends? Did you put a call out? And how did it really work out for you?
Actually, it was Tushan from Find My Fare who helped us on this. I had known Tushan previously, and we were actually trying to work a partnership where we integrate our products. So I just gave him a call and asked him whether he could help us with this. And luckily, we were helping him as well in being able to retain his team at this moment. So that worked out great, and it was not only help on the HR side. They even gave us the entire infrastructure to use.
Wow.
The call center infrastructure. So
Yeah.
there was lot of help for us.
So that was on which week, if you want to be precise?
This would have been probably about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's really an interesting point how important deep and meaningful collaborations and partnerships comes into play,
Mhm.
especially at a time of crisis.
Yes.
It can really be the saving grace, right?
Yes.
As in your case. So I'm really happy to hear that that worked out well for you. Uh, any unexpected outcomes, Heshan, as a result of this whole new reality you're dealing with?
One unexpected outcome would be that uh, the increase in productivity. I always thought that our team moved very fast and was very productive, but suddenly after the crisis hit, productivity increased maybe about 50 or 60%. That has something to do with everyone being razor focused and knowing exactly what needs to be done. So that was unexpected, and I think now with this level of productivity being achieved, I'm not so sure whether the team is going to be happy with me wanting to go back to how it was before when we thought it was good. Uh, and The other unexpected outcome, well, it was expected to a little bit, but the degree of the behavioral change in consumers as well as doctors. We knew that without an option, doctors and patients are obviously going to use telemedicine and online consultations to address their health needs. The pace at which it happened, as well as there were some doctors who told us they would never consult a patient without physically examining them, suddenly were on board oDoc and realized that there are some great use cases where telemedicine could be highly effective. So that would be one. And another interesting one, and maybe counterintuitively might be good for co-working spaces like Hatch as well. Is we realized we are as productive or more productive working from home. So whether we actually need a full-time office space. So last week we were contemplating when things go back to normal, whether we just take space for like a day or 2 days a week in a co-working space like Hatch, where we could come in and have our meetings and get the social factor in of being in a team, and work the other days from home. So
Yay, come to Hatch. Actually, you're very right about the productivity fact. I mean, although I really miss the space that we work in and the team and the amazing community we have there, productivity wise, I think also because we have something that drives us all, a reason to what we all do on a daily basis, and it's not just getting stuff done for the sake of doing it, but there's a larger vision for us to be doing what we're doing. So that really keeps the team going, especially in situations like this where we get to help people that we are working to help always. So yeah, it's amazing times to be able to do something even from our homes. In terms of you spoke about the new normal, Hesh. How are you guys gearing up for it? I mean, I know you said your team might not want to go back to how things were, and also we might not really go into it tomorrow, which was similar to yesterday. So how are you really gearing up to the new normal? What is the new normal for you?
I think it's probably too early to even know what the new normal is. There are so many unknowns right now. From okay, when will a antiviral come out? When would a vaccine come out? If someone gets immunity, does it last? Is this flu seasonal? So all the models and the theories benchmark this are broken. It's almost like the 2009 derivatives. What we do know is that there's been a massive economic shock across trade, across globalization, across travel, and this has hit everything our economy is built on in one go. So first it started off by hitting demand and supply, and now we can see it hitting working capital, and next it's going to be credit. Uh, all of this is coming together in like an unprecedented way. And unfortunately for us, the global social fabric also has been made more fragile in the last 20 years. So we don't really have a global leader really playing its part in this whole global response to COVID. One of the silver linings is probably that governments have learned from the Great Depression. They know how to act. The governments with money have been very aggressive and quickly launched out large stimulus packages. There are problems with that as well. So you see lots of the developed governments have been using quantitative easing for a long time, and now lots of their interest rates are close to zero. And governments such as ours don't have a lot of money to be spending on stimulus packages. So there are not a lot of natural levers that the government can pull. So it's all governments are basically have to resort to printing money and throwing all fiscal prudence out the window. So we're starting at a very bad place, and even though it's a deflationary shock, we are going to probably end up seeing very high inflation rates when obviously the government bonds are not going to get bought, and when you see yield curves decreasing. So I think there are so many unknowns that we don't know what the new normal is, and it's very difficult to predict how this is going to pan out right now.
And you mentioned earlier that a few of the funding options that you were working towards fell through, but you were able to secure an angel fund. Since you are a platform that have actually come through to expand and to also increase your efficiency during this very uncertain times, and proved increased efficiency, how do you perceive this really playing out a role for you in the future as a founder and as a startup?
Ranla, could you repeat that question again, please?
So basically, the investment landscape obviously changed because things are very uncertain, but also your position as a startup or your image and your agile mode of working also changed to better. How do you see these two things playing out for yourself as a founder of oDoc in future?
So interestingly, we've got a few new investors in the pipeline that are not maybe. I wouldn't use the word not as impacted by COVID, but do see the potential that digital health can play in the months and years going ahead. So there are new conversations that have started. I know we are in a very privileged place being in telemedicine, and it's obviously not the same for all founders, but for us, even though the previous funding rounds fell through or were put on a pause, it's still a very positive in terms of raising very soon coming forward.
Great. Yeah, I think you've really foreseen this coming through and gone into the right vertical and really done quite a good job adapting to the crisis yourself and together with your team. Two questions, I think, to take it out very fastly before we move on to the audience. What was your biggest aha moment during these past 4 weeks?
The biggest aha moments, it was probably having to manage the mindset at the dual mindset at the same time, that everything's under control and nothing's under control. So you need to do everything that you can control and work on that, but at the same time just know that nothing is actually under control, because no one could have predicted this. that was an aha moment. Then I would also think perseverance. There were so many times. If we go back to the history of oDoc, we started very slowly. If I can remember correctly, when we started, our goal on the first day was to have 10 consultations. A week went by and we didn't have a single consultation. And then we moved that goal to 10 consultations in the first month. And even in that month, we didn't, I think we had one or two. And finally, we decided to change the goal to get 10 consultations period. And it took us 3 months to get there. And again, I think most of those consultations were done by my mom as well. So there were so many times in this journey that it would have been very easy to give up. And it was mainly my ego of not wanting to fail rather than wanting to be successful that I think kept us going all this while. Uh, so it's very strange. Obviously, you can never expect there to be such a global crisis that would completely change the landscape of your business. So what I've come to realize is that it's hard work and making all the right decisions and the right moves are just 20% of the equation, and the balance 80% is luck. But at the same time, I know that my aha moment is probably what the fudge moment for most other founders as well. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's definitely how you take it. So mindset is key. You spoke about numbers, Eshan. How this is something I wanted to touch upon. How did the pandemic help this surge? I mean, how much of a surge have you actually seen?
So currently we are seeing a approx 5x increase in daily consultation volume. And we see that panning out to about a 10%, a 10x increase in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
And do you also see a lot of returning clients as well?
So interestingly, for our business, we were focused on the B2B side of operations, but right now it's turned to a B2C business with retail consumers coming in directly.
Yeah, yeah. So we have one question coming from Shanali, but before we go to that and open the questions to the audience, what would be one thing you wouldn't do that happened during the past 4 or 5 weeks, if you want to share that with us?
Okay. The one thing I would probably never do again is attend a Royal Thomian if there's a world pandemic being announced.
That's it.
So I thought long and hard about this, and how me and quite a lot of people I know made that decision. So even before attending, I was speaking to one of my friends, and he was like, "Yeah, there's no moral justification to attend," but we still ended up going. And yeah, there's a lot of soul searching on why we did that, but that's probably one thing we're not going to do again.
Thank you for being honest about that sharing, Hesh. I think we all had a good laugh and really appreciate it. With that, we'll open the floor to questions. No more Royal Thomian questions, I hope. Let's not. Let's keep it to oDoc. I think I'll go with Shanali's question. Shanali, would you like to speak it out yourself, or shall I read it out? Okay, so Shanali's question is, what have some of your learnings been in terms of user satisfaction and opportunities for value addition to oDoc?
So in terms of user satisfaction, with us partnering with the government, we are seeing a very different demographic of user as well come on board the platform. And we haven't calculated NPS scores yet, but I can say that there's been a 93% 5-star ratings for all the experiences they've had on the platform, which is higher, a little higher than our standard ratings. I'm not sure whether that's due to us providing this service in such a vital time. But that's one thing that we realized. And the other opportunities that have come up is that uh, with our business moving to B2C, and with also pharmacy, uh, people wanting to get medicines delivered to their doorstep, we've seen the prescriptions generated on oDoc increase by 1000x a day already. So that's one opportunity that we are looking at to go after. And we are also looking at Ayurvedic doctors at the moment to add another stream on that.
Oh, that's very interesting. Enosh, do you want to speak out your question? I'm not going to read out your question for you. We want to hear you, Enosh.
I had to come running now. Hey,
Hi.
Hesh. Hi. Nice to see you.
You too.
So
You need to turn your webcam on.
I like this.
oh no, not now. Not now.
You're not wearing a t-shirt. Yes.
So just want to put in perspective. I think a pandemic like this is definitely destroying some jobs, like maybe photographers, housekeepers, physiotherapists, and maybe if these kind of pandemics continue it and it resurfaces again and again, I think it's gonna wreak havoc in many of the past industries and professions that we know. From maybe your perspective of what you're doing as a startup, how do you see what are the dangers and opportunities you see forward?
In terms of oDoc, or in terms of
in terms of, yes, purely from a startup perspective of the solution that you're bringing, how do you see this? Do you see dangers, or basically, let's say for something like a profession like a doctor, uh, having no physical consultation at all, how do you fathom that?
Okay. Okay. So for doctors, they have the same. They need to treat a patient who does a video consultation with the same standard of care that they treat a patient that they have a physical examination with. So for any reason, if a doctor is unsure that they could arrive at a diagnosis just over video, they need to end the consultation and tell that patient that they need to go in for a physical examination. It would be impossible for doctors only to be able to treat all cases through video. So there's definitely still going to be that physical contact required with the doctor, and that's definitely not going anywhere soon. We are going to see a shift in a lot of consultations that could essentially be handled over video, happening through video now, but there's still going to be a large bulk of consultations happening in person. That was only part of your question. What was the other part, Enosh? Hello?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that was the question. I didn't have two parts.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question if I can.
Hi, Jeevan.
Hey, Hesh. First of all, congratulations. I think you must feel like Bill Gates, saying, told you so. And this is great. I think the platform you built is great, and I think it's a great service to the country. But my question is really around, the opportunities that come with COVID that will, and I think you're in a great space, which is, healthcare. And, I think healthcare now globally is really going to take off, especially stuff that like you're doing, like, take it online. What have you seen as an opportunity using COVID, and maybe as a beacon to other startups to really help you take your product overseas and, to new markets? Because obviously this is a global situation, right? And I think, so my question is, how do you then now use this platform to go global?
We've launched our service in the Maldives about 2 weeks ago, and that model already seems to be successful. And one way to quickly launch in overseas countries is to partner with a local partner, and that takes care of or quickly takes care of the regulatory and legal aspects. It helps with onboarding your doctor team, if you can find a partner that can help you with marketing and distribution as well, it takes the capital requirement out, or reduces the capital requirement as well to grow your footprint. So that's one model that we are pursuing at the moment, and we're looking at one other market as well. This Ayurvedic product is something I think that would work in other markets as well, if we manage to get it right. We're planning on running an experiment in the next week or so on that. Then one other thing that we are looking on at or working on at the moment is in adding or bundling micro health insurance along with telemedicine to create a very holistic health product, which I think will work very well in some of these emerging and frontier markets in the region.
No, excellent feedback. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ewan.
To add to your diversity. Sorry, go for it, Vinosh.
Hesh, I want to do a follow-up question as well.
Of course.
So I think see, many of the services that we are actually going for right now, especially if you take supermarkets and e-commerce, most of those things right now, I think most of those things are for a lack of option, is because we have no other option, we are going for it. So I mean, we could even look at telemedicine that way. Do you see that when we get back to normal, that people would get back to their normal lives and go back to their usual consumption patterns, or do you predict a better uptake than before COVID?
That's a great question, Enosh. Actually, I was thinking about that a lot as well. And being no expert in history or anthropology, the best article I read on it was by who was the guy who wrote Homo Sapiens? Noah Harari.
Harari, yeah.
Yes. So his study into this is that when there are big global shocks that fundamentally change the way people interact with products and services, that and accelerate change, even after that shock is complete, individuals still continue to use those goods and services the way they got used to across during the product or during the shock time period. So I'm pretty confident that we will see much greater adoption in digital goods, e-commerce, online health in the years to come. So for us, it's basically almost 10 years of change that's happened in a matter of a couple of weeks, and I see that continuing.
Thank you, Hesh.
Thank you, Enosh. And I think to add to your diversity of solutions, Tisha is happy to introduce neuropath doctors and therapists, she says, and let's collaborate. Yay.
Let's have a chat, Tisha.
This is so good. Nishanta, do you want to voice out your question? Tharindu, you'll have to wait. We have 2 more questions lined up before.
Yeah, I think part of my question was answered in the previous question by Enosh. I think just to follow up would be maybe if with the Heshan you see it continuing more as a B2C model or a mix of both B2C and B2B?
Now I see it continuing it as a mix of both. I think it was Steve Jobs who said it's impossible for a company to be a B2B and a B2C company at the same time and do both well, for early stage startup at least. So that's going to be a interesting and exciting problem for us to solve.
Okay, thanks.
Yasas, you have a question on the unique advantage.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Yasas.
So what I wanted to know was looking at this increasing demand for online consultations, if another player decides to come in with funding and launch a video consultation platform, what's the unique advantage oDoc has to defend yourselves? Is it the technology? Is it the doctors you have on board? How defensible is it?
At the end of the game, it's very easy to replicate this. It's just the speed of execution that matters. In terms of technology, you can put a technology platform out there. It took us a good, I would say 12 months for the platform just to become stable. And after that, it's building a brand name in your local market. But it comes down to execution and speed of execution.
Okay, thanks.
Tharindu had a question before we go to Savan's question.
Yeah, hi Hesh. With your new, with your accelerated adoption and everything, or in terms of the users, do you have doctors also coming to you and saying we want to be on the platform, or are you guys actively looking for more doctors? I mean, I just installed oDoc for the first time myself now and just looked through it. I'm just wondering how your doctor count and things are improving.
Yes, so we are doing both. We are getting doctors that come to us, and we are actively reaching out to doctors as well. So if I'm to give you any stats around that, before COVID, we had about 450 doctors, and right now we have just over 600 doctors on the platform.
Awesome. And that's how do you have any visibility of out of that how many people came to you as opposed to how many people you went to meet demand?
I need to get back to you on that. Quite a few of them came through the government service. So those would be doctors who volunteered through the government to get on the platform. And and just to add that, we've offered our platform completely free of cost to the government. So it's a CSR project in that aspect.
One question just come as a follow-up on that, Hesh. Were there any regulatory barriers that you had to deal with when you started oDoc, which got lifted or which was easy to navigate through due to the pandemic situation?
So the main barrier would be that, or regulatory barrier would be that there were no clear regulations. There was and there still is only a digital health guidelines issued by the MOH, which we follow. Apart from that, there are still no clear telemedicine regulations. And I think that's something the MOH is working on, and this would speed it up as well, because there definitely, in my opinion, there should be regulations on telemedicine. And lots of countries have already come up with these regulations. So there are a few that could very easily be lifted and shifted to Sri Lanka.
So Savan has a question. If you can give one advice to a startup, what would it be out of the many that you gave already, I think?
Existing startup, or if you want to start a startup?
Savan, do you want to specify? He says a startup. So let's just.
Okay, existing startup is stay alive. So actually, that was another video I got on one of these groups again on the best advice for startup founders right now. It was one of these Indian gurus who basically comes on and says, stay alive for 3 years, and wherever you are, I will come and find you and give you enlightenment. So basically, all you have to do right now is stay alive.
You seem to be following some secret Indian channel of content that we need to know.
So that would be from this accelerator program in India that we're part of, and that group. Oh my, yeah, I didn't realize that there's a lot of Indian content going on.
Vish, you have a question for Hesh?
Yes. Hi, Hesh.
Hi, Vishant.
I really excited and happy to see your progress you made in this situation. Just one quick question: how hard was it navigating any government bureaucracy in the telemedicine project that you just launched? Was it hard at all?
Actually, ICTA and MOH ran a very tight ship, and we had a very we had our designated contact points, and it was very easy to implement this project. We were actually astonished at how fast it got implemented and how rationally it was implemented as well.
Awesome, awesome. And a quick follow-up. Are you still operational in India? And if so, how were the growth rates there compared to Sri Lanka?
We are still operational in India. However, it was in India. It was a B2B play as well. However, the companies that we were serving have got very badly impacted by COVID. So more than that, it's just the B2C business. But given the surge in demand in Sri Lanka, we're concentrating on the Sri Lankan demand at the moment.
Awesome, awesome. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for everybody for coming, asking all of those questions. We have, I think,
one more quick question, if you don't mind. I think, Hesh, we're planning to do like a COVID EXO challenge in 2 weeks' time. Would definitely appreciate if you could be part of that. So sorry, I'm putting my two.
What's an EXO challenge?
It's an open XO. Expo stands for exponential, which is part of the Singularity University. This thing. So we're having a Sri Lanka COVID Expo challenge. So
great.
Definitely would look to you as an advisor for the startups coming on board that.
Yeah, sure, Jim. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Great. We have just one question, I think, to sum this all up with. It's a question that came to us previously. How do you have any mechanisms in place as of now with the increased demand to assure the quality that you deliver your services with, to assure the users regarding the quality of diagnosis and etc.?
It would be the same as before, and what we are actively managing right now is the ratio of patients to doctors, so that no doctor gets overburdened where they're doing any more consultations than before, and which could lead to errors.
Okay.
Apart from that, on the doctor side of our platform, we do have a few assistive tools for the doctors. Say, for example, if the doctors prescribe two medications that are known to interact with each other, there are automatic warnings that come on, and if a doctor enters a dosage of a medicine that doesn't seem quite right, there are assistive mechanisms on that side that which we are continually working on beefing up as well.
Great. Fantastic to hear that you're on a journey of continuous learning and improvement to deliver a best experience for the doctors as well as the patients. So I think with that, we can close the session today. Thank you everybody for pulling in your questions to Hesh. And Hesh, really, congratulations on what you've built and the journey that you've taken, and for really, biting the bullet, staying alive and really giving us such a great story to really live by. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Randall. And I just want to add that it's not over yet. When I saw the heading on, it was riding the wave of COVID, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We still need to be sure that we don't ride that wave into rocks. So it's always a startup, always a fine balance to get things right. So.
Yeah, and the best part is I think you have a community of people who are willing to really help you ride that wave. So yeah, we are all there to cheer or really pull in whatever we can to help you really ride that wave. So yeah,
thanks
you so much.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.